Welcome. Thanks for taking a few minutes to hear an update about what God is continuing to do in Liberia and to hear a little bit about our goals for Project Hope 2013. Now, many of you were with us in 2011 for Project Hope, and you learned then about our desire to help ACFI, African Christians Fellowship International, to improve in their ability to care for orphan and indigent children. And we were thrilled to see that God provided over $36,000 with that initial fundraiser for Project Hope to help with those most critical needs. And back then, we told you about the story of Hope and Georgia. Now, Georgia is ACFI's children's director, and she helps oversee a lot of their children's ministries. And we had been working with Georgia for a couple of years back in 2009 when she asked us to name her daughter. So I talked with some former mission team members and some of our sponsors. We prayed about it and decided upon the name Hope. And we decided upon that name because we really wanted to see hope grow in Liberia. Now, on the one hand, we wanted to see little Hope grow physically strong in this country where 1 in 9 children under the age of 5 dies. And we also wanted to see hope in Jesus Christ grow for all of the children in Liberia as they were able to grow up healthy and strong too. And knowing that this hope that we have is really only found in Jesus Christ, we wanted to work through the local church where they could spread the gospel and care for the most vulnerable in their society. So in 2011, after we were able to watch that $36,000 come in, we were able to provide microloans for 36 people and staff stipends for some of ACFI's key leaders for over a year. And that really helped them to retain those leaders and not have them go to other ministries where they could be paid the stipend. And then we were able to tackle some of the bigger maintenance projects at 2 of the boarding schools that ACFI maintains in Liberia. So since then, 2011, there have been so many different stories of how God has continued to work through ACFI, but I wanted to take a couple minutes just to share some highlights from the past year. Over the past year, we've been able to send 2 mission teams to work specifically with the children. And you can see a picture of one of those teams from last May up in the right-hand corner. And the teams really focus on working with the kids and mentoring them and holding VBSs and bringing some supplies for them. But we also try to help train the adults through some leadership training and teacher training, computer training. And then we try to help them with some of their self-sustaining initiatives like agriculture and work with the adults and the older students to help them learn how to grow some food to supplement their diets, and then also to do some maintenance projects on the homes where they live. Then down in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see a couple of pictures from our sponsorship program. We have been hugely blessed in the last year. We had 60 sponsors or 60 children being sponsored last May, and a year later now we have 110 children being sponsored. And that sponsorship helps the kids to be able to attend one of those 2 boarding schools, provides them with food, money for teachers and caretakers, and some basic medical care for them and some of their supplies that they need. And even more than that, for the kids, it's really important because the sponsors are able to pray for them and send them letters from time to time, and even packages when mission teams travel. Then in the middle, you'll see the trade school at the Oscar and Viola Stewart School for the Deaf. Now, this trade school has been in the process of being built for the last couple of years, and it's almost finished. And this school will allow students to learn a trade, and it will be for both disabled students and for non-disabled students. And this is really important because in a culture where there's 80% unemployment, there just aren't very many jobs available for the kids when they have this academic education. But if they can learn a trade, it's so much more likely that they'll be able to provide for their families when they grow up. And then in the corner, the right, one of my favorite stories, little Alice Tia. She was 6 years old last fall when she came to ACFI with her mom. She had swallowed some cleaner that burned her esophagus, so she was not able to eat by mouth anymore. The doctors in Liberia, the best that they could do for her was put a feeding tube in her stomach. But the formula that she needed was so expensive, her mom couldn't afford it. She was only able to provide Alice with some milk and cream of wheat. So you could see that Alice was literally starving to death very slowly when she came to ACFI. We were able to contact several different ministries and doctors and hospitals, and eventually were able to partner with Samaritan's Purse to have Alice and her mom travel to Kenya, where an American medical missionary doctor was able to replace her esophagus. And then you can see Alice's picture there on the right, that within a few months she was so much healthier and doing really well. And right as we speak, ACFI has teamed up again with Samaritan's Purse for a little boy in Liberia named Emmanuel, who will have a similar surgery. So it's really just amazing at what God has done through this very poor and yet very rich ministry in Liberia. And we're really excited to partner with them again and and have this initiative, Project Hope 2013, where we're going to try to raise $30,000 by October in order to meet some more critical needs. So you can see our three main areas that we want to provide some funds for are, again, to retain the godly leaders on staff with ACFI. We're also going to help again with some of the bigger maintenance needs that they have at both of the boarding schools. And then we'd like to start building a security fence at the Deaf Mission, which is the Oscar and Viola Stewart School for the Deaf. So let me tell you just a little bit more about each of those. The staff stipends, we'd like to be able to have $1,000 per month for 1 year to provide for some of these key staff who work for ACFI and specifically in the children's ministry. And these are some of their photos. And these funds really just help them because most of their work is volunteer. And in order to be able to provide for their families, these stipends help them with that and help them to continue to be trained up by ACFI and work for them. And then the maintenance needs, there are several of them. These are some of the bigger needs. There's a need for school desks at both of the boarding schools. And then there's a need for repairs on pipes that go to the septic tanks at both mission homes. And then both of them will also need to have those septic tanks emptied out. So that need is about $8,000 for those maintenance needs. And then finally, a security fence at the Oscar and Viola Stewart School for the Deaf. The actual cost for the fence will be a little over $26,000, and that will provide a concrete fence around the property. It will protect the students and the staff, as well as their gardens where they grow their food and all of the supplies at their home and at the school. And we saw when we were able to build a fence at the Daniel Hoover Children's Village several years ago that this drastically cut down on the theft that was going on there, and then just being able to keep the kids all contained within the facility and make sure that they were safe was a huge benefit to that home. And we want to do that again here for the students at the Deaf Mission. So we'd like to begin by raising the $10,000 and then trust God that He's going to continue to raise up the remaining need for that. So where do we go from here? I'd love for you to pray about what God wants to do through your family to accomplish this vision for Project Hope 2013. Now, if you might be called to make an individual commitment for your family, or you might also be called to gather some others to participate in Project Hope 2013 as well. Now, I will be honest with you that fundraising scares me. It just leaves me really just shaking in my shoes each time that God calls me to this. I kind of have this inner Jonah that longs to just hightail it in the other direction and run. But that didn't work out so well for him. So I'm determined to just plant my feet and be faithful to what God has called me to in this fundraising. And I'd ask you to do the same. Just pray about it and ask God, what is it that you would like to have me do within this fundraising initiative? I'm always reminded of this story in John 6 with the little boy. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Has the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And I'm sure his thought that day when there were over 5,000 people sitting around who were hungry and the disciples came to him to see what he had, in his lunch to share, I'm sure his thought was like mine, Lord, I don't have that much. I have a little bit that I could share with some folks, but it's just not that much. It's not going to go very far. But you're willing to have it, and to be able to just offer up whatever we have to Jesus, and watch him do that crazy math that he always does and multiply our little bit to be able to care for just a multitude of people. That's what gets me excited when I think about fundraising, and what helps me to go, okay, Lord, I'm just going to focus on you. I'm going to give you what I have and watch you do this crazy math and multiply it. So I'd ask you just to do the same. Pray, offer up whatever he's asking you. And if you would email your commitment to me at casliberia@gmail.com by the end of this month, then I'll commit to getting back in touch with all of you and letting you know where we stand with the commitments for Project Hope. And just watch in excitement to see what God is going to do. Now, as far as giving, you can do one of two things, and give this information to anyone else who's interested as well. You can go online to africanchildsponsorship.com and give there, or you can mail a check to Christian Adoption Services. Just make sure it goes to the attention of Project Hope 2013, and you can even put that in the memo line on the check and mail it in there to CAS. And it'll go to Project Hope as well. So I just wanted to thank you for listening here today, for letting me share my heart with you about Project Hope 2013. And I hope that you will join me once again and see what God has on the menu for lunch this year. Thanks, everyone.